white guilt is the currency. This is what they exchange, and they operate in white guilt. It is the currency of the Marxists, the communists, the socialists, the neoliberals, and the race hustlers. That's what white guilt is. They prey on white guilt. Power is in white guilt. They utilize white guilt to accomplish their agenda. So recently I had a chance to watch Shelby Steele's What Killed Michael Brown. It's a good documentary that I highly recommend. It has a lot of nuggets in there that are very informative and eye-opening and enlightening. And one of the things that struck me is how, starting with the Great Society programs initiated by President Johnson back in the 60s, the movement of the neoliberal, the new liberal that took place back starting in the 60s, how it saw black people not as people, but as less than human. And I say less than human because they do not see neoliberals, the Marxists, the socialists, the communists, they do not see black people as people. Because if they did, they would see them as individuals. They would see us as individuals, rather, black people as individuals, that we have our own agency and that we can make decisions about our own lives. We do not need the white elitist coming and telling us how to live our lives. But that's not what the neoliberals believe. No, the neoliberals are using the white guilt that was generated when America came to a reckoning based on how it was mistreating black people in the past, especially around since the inception of America, and how that was continuing even up through the 60s. And so in the 60s, America came to a recognition that something needs to be done in terms of race. Something needs to be done in terms of how America was treating a portion of its citizenry. And so what was born of that was white guilt. America recognized its faults and wanted to do something about it. But as the case with anything, when people get involved, it tends to be corrupted. It tends to lead to a power grab. And so the new liberals, who were capitalizing on the white guilt of America, went to work. It started with the Great Society. And that's when I learned the idea of black people being oppressed and white people having guilt was first born. Listen to this speech by President Johnson at Howard University in 1965.
And a century of oppression and hatred and injustice. For Negro poverty is not white poverty. Many of its causes and many of its cures are the same, but there are differences. Deep, corrosive, obstinate differences, radiating painful roots into the community and into the family and the nature of the individual. These differences are not racial differences. They are solely and simply the consequence of ancient brutality, past injustice, and present prejudice. They are anguishing to observe. For the Negro, they are a constant reminder of oppression. For the white, they are a constant reminder of guilt.
You'll see how even back then, the seeds of oppression and white guilt were planted. And this is all according to the playbook of the Marxists and the liberals. When it comes to black people, they do not see black people as having the intelligence to create a better life for themselves. They think, and this goes to the white supremacist idea of what critical race theory and all these things are looking to implement. They think they have a better way than the way that black people will go about doing things. So instead of allowing black people to have successes or failures on their own, no, they want to engineer the lives of black people, and particularly the lives of black people in inner city. So instead of allowing them to organically build neighborhoods on their own, no, they come in and tear down the neighborhoods and build these high-rise government buildings, these high-rise government projects. And they put all the black people in there. They herd them in like cattle and say, this is better for you. We're going to provide you with everything that you need. You don't have to lift a finger. Because of our quote-unquote white guilt, we're going to be the white savior that you need to come in and provide everything that you've ever asked for. But that does not work. Socialism does not work. That was the first experiment of America dipping its toe in the pool of socialism. And as you can see, that does not work. That has led to the decay of the black family. That has led to the destruction of the black community. That has led to the utter demolition of the black family. That experiment in socialism, by taking black families who were not doing as well as quote-unquote white families, but were matriculating up that ladder of prosperity here in America, but the white liberals wanted to accelerate that. So they destroy their homes and put up these high-rise government projects in the name of benefiting black people. But all that did was hurt them, because when the government can give you something, they can take it from you. And so what they did was they started these policies that removed the father from the home. So that ushered in the matriarchy. And you see, this perpetual cycle is still going on today. That is why we have the matriarchy. That is why you have families being destroyed in the black community. That's why you have the emasculation of men, because it has been intentional. It is an intentional attempt to emasculate men, to remove men from the conversation, to elevate women as the directors of the families, as the leaders of the families. The roles have been reversed. The men have been completely removed from the picture. And so what you have are children being raised with that mindset, children being raised with a victim mindset. And that victim mindset leads to a victimization of the community, because children are growing up not having a value for their lives because they do not see any other way to live. They're existing in these government prisons, these high-rise prisons, and therefore they are operating like prisoners, like animals, like monkeys, because that is what the government has told them they are. That is what the neoliberals, the new liberals have told them that they are. You are not human. You cannot think for yourself. We have to think for you. And so therefore people have no value of life anymore. They do not value life. And if they do not value their lives, they're not going to value your life. And so all Black Lives Matter walking around here talking about Black Lives Matter. The organization walking around here talking about Black Lives Matter. They do not matter. Because Black Lives Matter is just a continuation of the Great Society. It's a continuation of matriarchy. It's a continuation of the radical LGBTQ movement. That's all Black Lives Matter is. There's nowhere in their organization that elevates men. Nowhere. Not in the founding, not by the founders of Black Lives Matter. It was not there. None of these organizations that are looking to, quote unquote, bring change to the community, none of these organizations have the value of Black lives in their minds. They don't. They are a continuation of the socialist, the Marxist, and the communist agenda. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. That's why I say we are not victims, because the media and the puppets of the white liberals, they want every black person to be a victim. They want every black person to have a victim mindset. Victimhood is currency. White guilt is the currency of race hustlers, cultural Marxists, and neoliberals. White guilt is the currency. This is what they exchange, and they operate in white guilt. It is the currency of the Marxists, the communists, the socialists, the neoliberals, and the race hustlers. That's what white guilt is. They prey on white guilt. Power is in white guilt. They utilize white guilt to accomplish their agenda. That's the plan all along. Black people are being used as pawns. Black people are just a pawn in their game. They're using white guilt to have currency and power. Simple as that. And black people are just the pawns they're using. They're just a chess piece in the game that they're using. They're not concerned about the value of black lives, because if they were, they would actually remove these programs that are hurting the black community, institute programs that are more free market based, programs that actually lead to the betterment of their education, programs that actually lead to more economic opportunity and not government handouts. But they don't, because they never want black people to achieve, because it goes against their narrative, it goes against their agenda. They need black people in poverty. They need black people dependent upon the government. That's their agenda. In order for them to overthrow this land, they need a point of friction, a point of fracturing, and they use race for it. And so they capitalize on white guilt to continue to put outrage footage, continue to make people feel guilty for things that they cannot assuage, things they cannot apologize for, things they did not do. But the race hustlers and the cultural Marxists and the socialists and all that group, they know that. They know that the white guilt will never be assuaged. They know that. So they capitalize on that constantly. That's why it's constantly in your face. That's why they'll use a case such as Kyle Rittenhouse. A case that is clearly self-defense, that has nothing to do with black people, but they'll wrap blackness around it because they want to prey on the white guilt in order for political power. And it's an agenda. It is orchestrated. Listen to this montage of everybody parroting the same lie about Kyle Rittenhouse taking a gun across state lines, about him crossing state lines. Just listen to this. Listen to how this was parroted by the media. The media is working arm in arm with the people that want to destroy this land. The media has been infiltrated by the Marxists, and they're being used as a tool for propaganda.
August 24th, Rittenhouse went up to the Kenosha area for his job as a lifeguard.
Rittenhouse crossed state lines into a community that was not his.
My grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, and cousins all live in the city of Kenosha.
You know, you've got this young white kid defending the community that he's not even from.
What's your father's name?
Michael Rittenhouse. He lived in Kenosha.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Kyle Rittenhouse was just 17 years old when he drove across state lines to Kenosha, Wisconsin.
The teenager drove from his home in Illinois
approximately 1 mile to Wisconsin.
Across state lines, driving across state borders. He's driving across state lines.
Across the state line, across state lines.
Across state lines, across state lines.
If you look at the Rittenhouse case, he crossed state lines. Drives up to events.
Across state lines.
Came across state lines.
Kyle Rittenhouse, who traveled across state lines.
From out of state, out of his own state.
Came across state borders. Whenever you have a situation where a 17-year-old is crossing state lines,
White teenager.
He crosses a state line, drives 30 minutes into Kenosha.
Remember, he came across the line.
Across state lines.
Cross state lines.
Across state lines. Across state lines.
Kyle Rittenhouse, who crossed state lines.
came across
state lines.
Cross state lines.
He went across state lines. Cross state lines.
Cross state lines and
Cross state lines.
A 17-year-old kid from out of state.
He makes
out of state.
all
Cross state lines. Cross state lines. Cross state lines.
Across state lines.
Cross state lines. Went over state lines. Drove across state lines. He drove across state. Had his mother drive him across state lines from out of state.
say the line, Bart.
The teenager traveled across state lines.
Carl Rittenhouse traveled from his home in Illinois across the state line to Wisconsin.
Drove to a different state. Drives up to the state. Again,
drove across state lines.
The state that he does not live in. He traveled there from out of state. He crossed state lines, meaning he traveled across state lines. The 17-year-old who crossed state lines. Now again, he drove from Illinois to Wisconsin. The 17-year-old from out of state who shows up.
So that's why I say we are not victims. We are not victims. My people, we need to awaken to what is being done in our community. We need to awaken to what is being done to us. We need to wake up. You are not woke. You are blinded. You are not woke. You are blinded. We need to wake up and see the agenda and see the plan and see how they're infiltrating every institution and using it to destroy and subvert this land. We are not victims. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. I refuse to let anyone box me in just based on the color of my skin, and I hope you will do the same. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. Thank you so much for liking your comments and subscribing to the channel. Please share this with your friends. Smash that like button. Smash the subscription bell. Share this with everybody you know. We're trying to make sure people understand that they're not victims, that they are empowered for greatness, and all this stuff that's out here that's telling them otherwise is false and will not benefit them in the end. So please, I appreciate that. Share that.